Before we start, the name is at the top of the screen. Our female protagonist loved making things. She used to take apart the machines and appliances around her or make her own. She was working on the motherboard and CPU upgrades, which she completed. The graphics card, since she doesn't have money, she will do it next time. She went to university for engineering. One day, she was running in a hurry for her afternoon seminar, which she was already late for. On her way, she got into an accident and died. She stares ahead, her expression blank and distant until a cold voice cuts through her haze, asking if she is even listening. Snapping back to reality, she looks up at the woman glaring down at her. The woman informs Elaine that a decree of banishment has been issued against her. She is to leave the Empire's territory within 10 days. Dismissing her like she is nothing, the woman orders her to pack her belongings and leave the mansion at once. Elaine gulps, sweat trickling down her face as realization crashes over her. She just remembered everything. The fact that in her previous life she was sorry for Rookie, that she died and was reborn into this different world, the nobility of the Ranver Empire, a prestigious magic lineage, and a prominent military house, the Bollinger family. She is their youngest daughter and her name is Elaine Bollinger. She calmly replies, "Yes, mother." Her mother nods in satisfaction, saying it is good that she is being so understanding. The door shuts behind her with a sharp clack, leaving the room in silence. Letting out a long sigh, Elaine throws herself onto the bed. Banished from the country. What was that supposed to mean? Had she done something wrong? She knew who the one at fault was, but her thoughts suddenly cut off. Her head is in a mess. Is it because her memories from her previous life came flooding in? No, it is not just that. Right now, Elaine and Saori are melting and mixing together inside her. Elaine pauses, deep in thought. Isn't this strange? Normally, being banished from one's own country should feel like absolute despair. But now that Saori and Elaine had merged into one, all she could think about was what to pack for exile. For now, she decides to stuff everything she can carry into her item bag. There are too many things she wants to do, too many things she wants to try. The excitement inside her refuses to settle. Later, as she walks through the garden, she realizes she will need money for any of that. From the mansion window, her mother watches her leave and mutters that she is a foolish daughter. Turning to a servant, she orders him to send Fred to her the moment he returns. Later, in the marketplace, Elaine walks with a bright smile. It had been a while since she had walked around the city so freely, and she found herself enjoying it. But as she passes by, whispers follow her. People murmur that she was the mastermind behind the corruption scandal and remark that appearances really could not be trusted. When she enters a shop, the owner stiffens and apologetically tells her that he cannot sell anything to her, nor buy anything from her, and asks her to try somewhere else. Elaine blinks in disbelief. The man folds his arms and scoffs, saying that if people found out he had done business with a criminal, it would only bring trouble upon him, and asks her not to hold it against him. Elaine sighs. It was the Boulanger family's territory, after all. It was only natural things would turn out this way. Later, disguised with a mask made with magic, she enters another shop and places some items on the counter, asking the shopkeeper to buy it. The shopkeeper examines her curiously and asks if she is a mage or an adventurer. Picking up the item, he narrows his eyes and warns that if it is fake, he will not buy it. Elaine replies that she is something like that. As the man checks it, he admits that quality like this was rare and confirms that it is genuine, even calling it a fine piece. Elaine stares at it quietly. It had been a birthday gift from another noble family. Who would have thought it would come in handy now? Her mother had never given her anything like that. Later, outside the shop, Elaine puffs her cheeks in annoyance. Even after praising it as top quality, that old man had still undervalued it and paid her less than it was worth. Still, with this much money, she could buy what she needed. Later, she buys materials in bulk. The merchant says she is the first person he has seen buy that many iron ingots, and asks what she plans to do with all of it. Elaine says lime, coal, high-grade silicious sand, and everything else lined up there. Later, she is tossing the materials into her bag, thinking iron would cost this much. Her remaining gold coins have dropped to 20. Still, to think she can carry around that many materials. The item bag is just too convenient at the outskirts of the city. Elaine stops and looks back at the city gates. She says farewell, the Boulanger domain. Just as she turns to leave, someone calls out to her. She freezes. Looking back, she sees Aristi running toward her. When Aristi finally catches up, she bends over, catching her breath, before asking where Elaine plans to go from here, remarking that it had been 2 years. Elaine narrows her eyes and asks if Aristi had known today was the day of her exile and had been waiting for her. Aristi says so she has been caught. Elaine tells her she is glad she came to see her off, but warns that if anyone saw her with Elaine, people would think she was involved in the corruption case too. Aristi shakes her head and says she did not come to see her off. She declares that she wants to serve Elaine once again, not as a servant of the Boulanger family, but as Lady Elaine's personal maid. However, Elaine hesitates. She tells Aristi she is to be exiled from the country and to serve someone like her. However, Aristi says to begin with, she should have been under house arrest at the mansion. Ever since she was suddenly dismissed, there's no way she could have committed corruption. She looks deep in thought and says, is it possible that she was framed by Lady Dillis? Mother Dillis had always looked down on her. It was because in the prestigious military family of Boulanger, her aptitude was in alchemy magic, which is, so to speak, a craftsman type of magic. While she doted on her older brother and sister, she hated her. That was also why she kept her under house arrest for so long. Her mother's pride was high and she is greedy. Just as Aristi says, there is no doubt her mother is involved in this corruption scandal, but even if she were to scream right now, who would believe her? She calls out to Aristi, looking down at her, she tells her firmly she wouldn't allow such groundless suspicion and to mind her place. She quickly bows down and then she shuts her eyes and says, regardless of the truth, in the eyes of the world, she is a criminal. Aristi looks up at her and says, however, would the person who framed her really leave her be even if she really is exiled? She also points out she is a military maid. In the 164 years since she has been born, she has made a name for herself in many battles and she has some confidence in her skills. Would she allow her to protect her life? Elaine thinks, 164 years old is not uncommon in this world, but she's only 19. She then gives up and finally tells her she understands. She thinks there's nothing more reassuring than having her as her guard. She asks her then will she serve under her once again? She quickly says yes. Truth be told, more than anything else, it is that she truly loves Aristi. Later, Aristi suddenly stops and asks where Elaine is going. Pointing to the left, she reminds her that the path to the border is that way. A few steps ahead, Elaine glances back and points toward the path ahead instead, explaining that she has some business in the forest first. Aristi stares at her, dumbfounded. Elaine explains that since there are no monsters in that forest, it is the perfect place to prepare for their journey without being seen by anyone. Aristi repeats her words. Prepare for the journey? Elaine tells her that she plans to perform transmutation there using alchemy magic. Aristi looks around at the empty forest and asks if she really intends to do it in a place like that. Elaine simply replies yes. After all, she had lost her atelier. She then asks Aristi to keep watch for her. Aristi says she understands. Alchemy magic was not capable of creating just anything. To create something, one needed a deep understanding of the material structure and the principles behind the object being made. As Elaine picks up a chunk of iron, she lets out a sigh at its weight. She wishes she had magic to make heavy things light. It is convenient since iron can be interchanged with copper or aluminum. In short, things she doesn't know or have never seen before cannot be defeated, but as Saori knows that mixing iron with carbon increases its strength, that coal can be liquefied to create plastic and rubber, that glass can be made with the silica sand, lime, and anhydrous sodium carbonate. Now that she has gained the knowledge of her past life as Saori, Elaine's alchemy magic is to demonstrate infinite possibilities. A blinding light suddenly bursts from the ground, a glowing magic circle spreading beneath Elaine. Startled, Aristi rushes to her side, calling out and asking if she is alright. Just now there was incredible light. Elaine apologizes, asking if she had startled her. She explains that when she transmuted the iron into aluminum, the energy release had been far greater than expected. Aristi stares at the pile in front of her in complete shock and asks what in the world all that junk was. Elaine casually replies that it might look like junk now, but all that was left was assembling it. To build. And build. Now all that is left is to assemble it, to build and to build. How incredibly fun this is. The pure pleasure of watching her ideas take shape one after another. And then she makes a car. Aristi watches in shock and says, "What in the world is this?" She replies, "This is an automobile." She just needs to think of it as a carriage that can run without horses. Does that make it easier to understand? Aristi says, even without horses, she doesn't really get what she means. Wait, an ox. She replies, among automobiles, this is called a camper van. It is a vehicle specifically designed for traveling. She invites Aristi inside and tells her that shoes are not allowed inside, so she should take them off first. Aristi obediently removes them and steps inside. The moment she enters, her jaw drops. She asks if this is really the inside of a carriage. It looks more like a small house. Elaine tells her that was exactly what a camper van is. Aristi touches the sofa and marvels at how soft it feels. Then Elaine points out the toilet. Aristi repeats toilet in confusion. Elaine explains that it even has a warm water washing function. Aristi doesn't understand what that means, but somehow feels that it sounds amazing. Elaine giggles and tells her she will understand later. Next, she shows her the kitchen area. Pointing at the sink, she explains that water comes out from there. When water flows out, Aristi freezes in awe. She stares at the clear stream as though witnessing a miracle, saying it feels pure enough to wash one's soul. Elaine mumbles it is only stored water from a tank, though she purified it. Then she introduces the stove. The moment Elaine presses a switch and fire springs up, Aristi immediately jumps back into a defensive stance and screams fire. Elaine calmly tells her it is fine and explains that the flame can be adjusted with the knob. Aristi stares in disbelief and declares that it has to be magic. Elaine says it is not magic. It is machinery, a mechanism. Even people without magic could use it. Aristi looks even more shocked. To her, controlling fire and water at will without magic sound no different from magic. But Elaine insists it is not. Next, she shows her the shower room, explaining that although it is small, it is essential for long journeys and can even produce hot water. Aristi is overwhelmed, asking again if that is really not magic. Elaine tells her that it is simply how the mechanism works. By this point, Aristi's mind is spinning from all the surprises. Finally, Elaine shows her the bedroom. The moment Aristi sees the soft bed, she collapses onto it in complete awe. Aristi realizes how wrong she had been. Aristi says, what has she done? She completely misunderstood her. Even though she was the youngest daughter of the family, she only had an aptitude for alchemy magic, which was considered plain and uninspiring. And to make matter worse, she was even struggling to master that plain magic. Elwine mutters, she's getting roasted pretty hard. She admits she loves her a lot, but if asked if she could be someone who supports the prestigious Bolanger family, well, her answer was, But she was wrong. Her eyes were useless. She is a genius, such a magnificent carriage. Elaine corrects her, it is called a camper van. Aristi excitedly repeats camper van and clasps her hands together, convinced Elaine must have bloomed into her talent during the 2 years they had been apart. She imagines Elaine enduring harsh and painful training to reach this point. She is sure she went through incredibly grueling training. She mutters this morning as Aori just descended upon her. It wasn't anything special. Then, Aristi frowns and says, regardless, this country is so foolish to exile a talent like her. Why does her heart ache so much? Elaine then says now she has to check if it runs properly. Aristi says, oh right, she forgot, it runs without horses. Outside, she waves her hands dramatically at the vehicle, telling it to run. Elaine stops her and points out that an automobile would not move just because someone slapped its rear. It needed to be driven. And for that, she would leave it to the golem. Golem, a creation of her alchemical magic, it moves at her will and can execute simple commands. When the golem starts the engine, the vehicle lets out a deep rumbling sound. Aristi flinches and remarks that it sounds strangely angry. Elaine explains that it had only started the engine. It was simply warming up. To be safe, she says they should watch from a distance first. Then she orders the golem to drive slowly around the clearing a few times. The camper van begins to move. Aristi stares in amazement. It was moving even though there were no horses pulling it. Unable to contain herself, she rushes toward it in awe. Elaine immediately shouts for her to move, warning that she would get run over. Luckily, the vehicle stops in time. Relieved, Elaine confirms that it runs without any problems and pats its side like praising a horse. She crouches to inspect the tires, muttering that the ride quality might be an issue since there were no paved roads in this world. She decides the suspension stroke would need adjustment later. Still, since it could at least drive properly, there was no reason to delay. It was time to leave. When Aristi asks where they are heading, Aline explains that for now, since they had been exiled, their destination would be the kingdom of Karamia, a neighboring nation beside the Ranvar Empire. As for what came after that, she had not decided yet. Now that she was finally free, she wanted to enjoy a slow life. At her own pace for a while. She then tells the golem to drive safely, and their journey begins. She, who was reincarnated, is an exiled young lady driven from her country while crafting with alchemy magic. She shall travel through this parallel world. As they cover some distance, Aristi says she's impressed she has never ridden in a vehicle this fast. She replies they are not even close. If they get serious, they can reach 100 kilometers per hour. It means it can run twice as fast as a bareback horse. She thinks unbelievable. She then says well even if they weren't that fast on this road, it would be too bumpy to stay inside. There's still plenty of room for improvement. Aristi says, but if my lady says so, it feels like it might actually be possible. She has really taken a liking to this camper van. Leaning out the window, Aristi proudly shouts greetings to the people outside, declaring that she is currently riding in a camper van. But suddenly, her cheerful expression freezes. A moment later, she stumbles back inside and weakly admits that she might have reached her limit. This might be an incurable disease. Aline calls out to her and says it is the car sickness. She will synthesize some anti-nausea medicine right now. After giving Aristi the medicine, Aline says the sun is beginning to set. She decides they should camp there for the night. Spotting a nearby village, she says she will go fetch ingredients while Aristi rests. Aristi protests, insisting that such work should be hers. But the moment she tries to stand, her dizziness makes her fall again. Aline says see. Outside, as Aline walks toward the village, she thinks she has to get back before it gets dark. Monsters appear around here, don't they? At the village, a man tells her it is late for visitors, however, she can take some vegetables from the field, but they only have salted meat. She thanks him a lot. Salted meat takes a long time to reconstitute, doesn't it? She can use magic to speed it, but for some reason, it doesn't taste good. On the bright side, she got bread, milk, eggs, cheese, and lots of other things. On the way back, however, her path is blocked. 3 wolves stand before her, growling. Aline straightens herself and reminds herself that she is still descended from the prestigious military house of the Boulanger family. If it was only 3, she could handle it. But when she glances behind her, her eyes widen. She is surrounded. A whole pack had encircled her. It was clear they had no intention of letting her leave. Aline grits her teeth and decides to stall with defensive magic until she finds an opening. But before she can finish constructing her barrier, one of the wolves lunges. And in the next instant a blade flashes. Aristi appears out of nowhere and drives her knife straight into the wolf. In moments, she cuts down the rest with terrifying speed. Standing amidst the fallen beasts, she glances back at Aline and remarks that her barrier construction was as slow as ever. Then, eyeing the remaining wolves, Aristi casually comments that werewolf meat was delicious and invites any who wish to become dinner to come at her in order. The remaining wolves immediately retreat. Aline realizes it was because Aristi had killed the pack leader. Without it, the pack has ran away. Aristi quickly turns back and apologizes, asking if Aline is hurt. She blames herself for letting her go alone. Even if Aline had changed over the past 2 years, Aristi says, she was still Aline. But Aline only smiles and points out that thanks to this, they now had fresh meat. She had been wondering what to do with only salted meat for dinner. Aristi brightens up and says she will handle the butchering. For a while, they would not need to worry about finding meat. Still, Aristi wonders what they should do with the leftovers. Salt them or dry them? Aline tells her not to worry. She had built a large food storage compartment beneath the camper van. When she opens it, a wave of cold air hits her. Aristi freezes in shock. The inside of the box is freezing cold like winter snow and ice. Aline explains that it is called a freezer. If they stored the meat inside, it would stay fresh and never rot. Aristi stares at the freezing compartment in disbelief and asks if it is magic. To her, there is no other explanation. Creating winter inside a box could only be magic. Aline calmly explains that it is just another mechanism. When a liquid turns into gas, it steals heat from its surroundings, a phenomenon called heat of vaporization. She gives a simple example: if skin is wet and air blows over it, it feels cold. This machine simply applies that same principle. Aristi listens with wide eyes and concludes, as expected, Elaine is a genius. Though, even after the explanation, she understands absolutely nothing. Elaine says it was not as though she had invented it herself. Pushing that aside, she tells Aristi to store the extra meat inside and move on to cooking. Inside the camper van's kitchen, Elaine tells her that while teaching her how to use the kitchen, she will be the one cooking tonight. The moment Elaine ignites the stove, Aristi jumps back in alarm, shocked by how suddenly the fire appeared. The bright flame amazes her, glowing as brightly as daytime. Elaine, already done with her exaggerated reactions, tells her to focus and help instead. She instructs Aristi to separate the meat from the bones, mince it, and chop it finely with a kitchen knife. Aristi confidently says she is good at that kind of work and quickly gets started. Watching her speed, Elaine thinks she should eventually make a food processor. Meanwhile, Elaine prepares the vegetables, slicing onions and potatoes for the side dishes. Potatoes and tomatoes had arrived in Europe in her previous world only after the 16th century, yet in this world, they seem to have existed for ages. And thanks to magic, vegetables could be grown out of season. Once Aristi finishes mincing the meat, Elaine tells her to knead it together. Aristi watches curiously and admits she has never seen a dish where meat was smashed up like this. She wonders what exactly Elaine is making. Elaine only smiles and tells her it is a surprise. Before long, the meal is finished. Aristi stares at the strange dish in shock. Elaine explains that it is called a hamburger and teaches her how to eat it: pick it up with both hands and take a big bite. Elaine says it was just as she thought: the powerful savory flavor of the werewolf meat, the presence of organic vegetables that holds its own, rich handmade cheese and simple pickles, and thus buns that hold it all together. To say the least, it is the best. When she notices Aristi still hasn't eaten it, she asks her if she's not going to eat it. She says only if it is in order to eat and hesitantly takes a bite. But then her eyes widen and the next second she is eating like a mad. The sauce clings to her lips, her flushed face looking almost seductive. She nearly jumps from her seat, demanding to know what this incredible food is. It is too delicious. She has never eaten anything like this, especially this white sauce. It is rich and smooth and it brings her the meat and vegetables together perfectly. She tells her it is mayonnaise. She can make it by emulsifying egg yolk, oil, and vinegar together. She cannot even pronounce it. Elaine tells her once she teaches her the recipe, she is sure she will be able to make hamburgers even better than her. Aristi asks her if she will teach her the recipe. Elaine replies, of course, but more importantly, their priority is getting out of this country safely. Aristi nods and says, especially after what happened earlier, they're leaving the lookout duty to the golems, but they must think of a system that can alert them immediately to anomalies even when they are sleeping. Also, they must move in pairs. As Aristi eats one of the fried potatoes, she asks what in the world these potatoes are. They are delicious. Elaine casually replies that they are just plain French fries. Aristi admits she had always thought potatoes were only meant to be steamed. At that moment, neither of them notices the crow watching from outside. Far away, the crow reports everything to Elaine's mother. She says, so she is together with Aristi, that is troublesome. And she doesn't understand what the crow means by riding in a carriage that is not drawn by horses. In any case, the two are heading towards the kingdom of Karamia, right? If so, Elaine will definitely pass through Anna's forest. She asks Pred if he heard that and tells him to take his assassination squad and head to the forest immediately. She calls for Fred and orders him to take his assassination squad there immediately. Fred bows before his mother and assures her that he will dispose of Elaine without fail. Meanwhile, back at camp, Aristi says she cannot stop eating these French fries. But Elaine says if only they had cola now, it would be perfect. Aristi asks, what is cola? She is interested. She only replies, the recipe for cola, she will have to research it a bit. She was having a long dream. In the dream, she was a magic user. If she understood the principle and structure, she could make anything as long as she had the materials. It was fun, if such power truly existed. But then suddenly, she gasps. She looks around in shock. It was a dream, but it wasn't a dream. And what is that sound? Was that a dream of her previous life Saori that just entered into her? Outside, Aristi is cutting boards and wishes her a good morning. Her name is Elaine Boulanger, a pitiful magic user who was framed for a crime committed by her mother and exiled from the country. This girl is Aristi. She was a maid of the Boulanger family, but now she travels with her like this. Aristi asks Elaine what she has been muttering to herself about for a while now. Elaine replies that so much happened yesterday, so she was just sorting through her thoughts a bit. She then asks Aristi what she is doing. Aristi replies that she is just splitting some firewood. Elaine says she can see that just by looking. Aristi admits that she was thinking of making breakfast. Elaine asks if she cannot just use the stove since she taught her how to use it yesterday. Aristi says that is true, but with a shy giggle she adds it is still kind of scary. Elaine sighs and suggests they make breakfast together. After they eat, they can go to the village to buy supplies. Later, at the village, Aristi proudly says that was easy and that she has perfectly mastered how to use the stove now. The villager from yesterday greets Elaine, calling her the young lady from yesterday. Elaine thanks him for helping her and notices the strawberries, commenting on how fine they look. The villager proudly says the quality is top-notch, but the fields in the village have been ruined by monsters, and it is becoming a serious problem. Elaine repeats in surprise, monsters. The man explains that usually they would ask a magic user to put up a protective barrier, but recently the prices have gone up. His field managed somehow, so that was fortunate. Then he asks Elaine if, as a magic user, she can do something to exterminate the monsters. Elaine hesitates, saying that even if he says that kind of magic is not really her specialty. The man nods and explains that magic is highly specialized. There are specialists for monsters, pests, vermin, diseases, fertilizer, and water. For ordinary people who cannot use magic, it means paying every time they need something handled. Otherwise, they cannot survive. Later, after buying some things, Aristi says it was great that they got so many extras and discounts. Elaine agrees while eating an apple, but she looks lost in thought. Aristi asks if she is thinking about something. Elaine admits she feels a little uneasy. More importantly, though, they need to get some coal. Aristi asks why they need coal when spring is already halfway over. Elaine explains it is not for warmth. She plans to decompose the coal to make hydrocarbon oil. From that, gasoline can be made, which they can use as fuel for the camper van. Aristi admits she does not understand it, but if it is something they need, then they should get it. At the shop, Elaine asks the merchant to give her all the coal he has. The man happily thanks her for the business. But Aristi quickly pulls her aside and whispers that they barely have any travel money left. Elaine pauses. Aristi sighs, thinking that as expected, Elaine's sense of economics as a noble lady is lacking. But Elaine is already apologizing to the merchant, saying she will come back later. Giving up on the coal for now, Elaine buys herbs instead. Aristi asks what they are for. Elaine explains that she plans to make energy drinks with them, sell them, and earn travel money. She also plans to make something with the leftover iron from when she built the camper van and sell that too. With the money they earn, they can buy more materials, make more things, sell them, and keep growing their funds. Aristi looks at her in admiration, wondering if she is a genius. She asks what Elaine plans to make with the iron. Elaine casually says maybe hoes or sickles. Aristi immediately says that sounds plain and suggests making swords or armor instead, since they would sell for much more. If needed, she would even teach people how to use them. But Elaine rejects the idea, reminding her that this is a farming village. They have to consider supply by anticipating demand. Aristi asks if this is another one of those strange things Elaine talks about. But she insists that with swords, they could exterminate the monsters ruining the fields. Elaine points out that the monster from last night was a werewolf, but werewolves do not ruin crops. In this area, it is probably a gola goat. Those creatures are cautious and sensitive to sound, so they would never show up even if someone waited with a sword. So swords are definitely unnecessary. But then Elaine suddenly pauses. Aristi asks what is wrong. Elaine admits she just came up with a brilliant idea. Later, Elaine presents a strange device to a shopkeeper. The man asks what it is. Elaine explains that it is a highly directional speaker. The sound can travel several kilometers. Although the volume is low, it should be effective against gola goat because it emits sounds they hate at random intervals. The power source is solar energy collected during the day. But the man says he has no need for such a thing. They have lived on this land the same way for thousands of years. There is no need to change things now. He tells her to go home. Elaine tries to explain how useful it could be, but the man cuts her off and calls her persistent. He warns that if she keeps bothering him, he will call the guards, insulting her as a third-rate witch and a con artist. Aristi immediately gets angry and is ready to fight him, saying he will pay for insulting her lady with death. But Elaine quickly stops her and reminds her that they are exiles. If they cause trouble here, it could mean death penalty for them. Aristi freezes at that. Elaine then snatches back the speaker and tells the shopkeeper to watch carefully. She points at an old man sitting far away and says it is an old man Donald. That old guy's stories are long and tedious, and he has got a short temper. She tells him that this tool can throw a voice. She will prove it. She says now she will show him by speaking and making him turn around. The shopkeeper scoffs, saying there is no way it will work since the old man is hard of hearing. Aristi eagerly asks if she just has to speak into it. Without waiting, she shouts into it, warning the old man that there is a bug on his back. The old man immediately reacts and starts looking around. The shopkeeper stares in shock. It actually worked. Wanting to test it himself, he grabs the speaker and calls the old man bald. The old man immediately gets angry and stands up. The shopkeeper bursts into laughter. Elaine stares at him and says she did not make that thing just for pranks. The shopkeeper winks and says he will take it. Later, as they walk back, Aristi excitedly spreads her arms and says they ended up selling 10 units. The farming tools and energy drinks they made all sold out too. Elaine agrees. With that money, they can now buy all the materials from the shop. It turned out to be a good deal. Aristi wonders if the shopkeeper will actually use the tool properly. Elaine says he would not buy 10 of them just for pranks. Besides, she adjusted it so that even at maximum power, it only carries a whisper. Aristi says, so is it possible to make it transmit loud voices too? Elaine replies, of course. If she cranks up the outfit, it could even burst someone's eardrums if she really felt like it. Elaine tells her to wait a little longer before they depart. Later, they are back inside the van. Elaine informs Aristi that the gas tank is now full. She has refueled it and improved the ride comfort as well. All that remains is to cross the border. Through the window, Elaine notices the crow still following them. She knows it is her mother's crow. Soon, they arrive near the Annan forest, a vast woodland stretching across the border between the kingdom of Karamia and the neighboring lands. To reach the border town, they must pass through it. Elaine remarks that whoever framed her would not simply let things end here. They would attempt an ambush assassination. The forest was the perfect place, filled with monsters, where no bodies would be recovered. Even so, Aristi adds, Elaine's mother would not come personally. The assassination would most likely be carried out by Fred von Boulanger instead. Aristi says that when it comes to Lord Fred, a direct confrontation would be inevitable. His combat prowess was monstrous. She hesitantly asks if there is any way to avoid fighting, suggesting they might try to escape using the camper van. Elaine rejects the idea. They would be pursued even across borders. And running would only leave them vulnerable from behind. This time, she decides, they will face them head-on. It is the best opportunity. Aristi asks if that is truly alright, since he is her brother. Elaine coldly reminds her not to forget that she is also a member of the prestigious military house of the Boulanger family, and in the next moment she pulls out a large firearm. And she can kill without hesitation. Aristi stares at it in confusion, asking what kind of iron rod that is and whether it can really oppose a sword. Elaine corrects her. It is a short gun, something like a charm for dealing with her brother. Better than nothing. More importantly, she tells Aristi to follow exactly what she taught her regarding firearms. Aristi nods and says she will do her best. As they pass through the dense trees and the forest finally gives way to a road, a group appears ahead. At the center is Fred Boulanger on his horse. Behind him is his assassination squad standing in silence. Elaine orders the golem to stop the vehicle. Fred mutters that this must be the rumored carriage that moves without horses. He then commands her to come down. If she refuses, he will bury both her and the carriage here. When Elaine steps out, Fred says it has been a long time. In that instant, Elaine's body freezes. Her body wouldn't move, her heart is racing, and she's having trouble breathing. She cannot make a sound. She wonders if it is magic, but then realizes no, it has been etched into her heart since she was little. It is terrifying. Her brother is the next head of the family, skilled in swordsmanship and combat magic. He also leads the Empire's strongest elite unit. He smirks and says the time has finally come to eliminate her. She is the shame of the family, just thinking that he shares the same blood with an incompetent person like her makes him sick. He admits he has been waiting for this day to personally end her. Then he spreads his arms and activates body-strengthening magic, his expression turning cold and inhuman. She realizes he is using body-strengthening magic. His face starts becoming emotionless. Aristi sitting inside the van with the gun wants to tell the young lady to not be consumed by fear. Fred's gaze shifts to her. He asks what she is holding. He doesn't know what she's plotting, but he admits she is capable and tells her to never mind his foolish sister, but he has also brought the troops with him, but if she likes, she can come to him now and he will spare her life. She replies, she's sorry, but she has dedicated everything to the lady so she cannot betray her. Elaine looks at her with quiet emotion. Fred calls her foolish and draws his sword. At that moment Aristi raises her gun and points it directly at him. This time she faces him head-on and warns that if he moves even a single step, she will shoot without hesitation. And that concludes the video today. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Leave a comment if you want another part. And thank you God for another day and all these blessings.